Okay, these notes will be going over the Pythagorean Theorem. Now, the formula for Pythagorean Theorem is a squared plus b squared equals c squared. And we use the Pythagorean Theorem to find the missing side of a right triangle. Now, you're probably wondering what these letters A, B, and C stand for. Well, A and B stand for the legs of our triangle, and C stands for the hypotenuse. Now, you're still probably wondering, what are the legs and what are the hypotenuse? Well, as I mentioned before, we use this to find the missing side of a right triangle. So we always want to start off by identifying our 90-degree angle. Once you have identified your 90-degree angle, you should always draw an arrow. And this arrow points to C. Now, remember, C stands for the hypotenuse of your triangle. And again, as mentioned before, it will always be diagonal from your 90-degree angle. And your hypotenuse also happens to be the longest side of your triangle. Now, the other two sides are called the legs, and your legs are always connected to your 90-degree angle. So again, these are called the legs. Now, as you can see up top, we use A and B to represent legs. Now, A and B are interchangeable, so I can have the height of my triangle be A or B, and I can also have the base of my triangle be A or B. But what I like to do, I like to label the height of my triangle as A. And this helps me remember the altitude, because altitude is another word for height. Now, this is the base of my triangle, so I like to label this as B for base. Now, using this information, we're going to go ahead and solve to find the missing sides of right triangles. Now, you'll either have to find the missing side, which will happen to be the hypotenuse, or your missing side could also be a leg. So we're going to first look at if your missing side is a hypotenuse. So this is going to be problems 1 through 3. So looking at numbers 1 through 3, we're going to go ahead and start off with number 1. First thing you should do is identify your 90-degree angle, and remember, you want to draw an arrow that points to C, which is your hypotenuse. Now, the other two sides, which are connected to your 90-degree angle, are called your legs. Now, we need to label these as A or B. Now, again, since this is the height of my triangle, I like to label this as A. And since this is the base of my triangle, I like to label this as B. So again, that formula was A squared plus B squared equals C squared. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and take these values I have for A and B, and I'm going to go ahead and substitute them into the formula. So for A, we have 4 squared, plus B squared, we have 3 squared, and this equals C squared. So now we have to simplify our exponents. So you can go ahead and get your TI Inspire out for this. I'm going to go ahead and use the Desmos Calculator, which you can also find in Schoology. So for 4 squared is 16. Plus 3 squared, which is 9. And this equals C squared. Now here I see that I have to add 16 and 9 together. So 16 plus 9 equals 25. So 25 equals C squared. Now, I'm looking for the value of C. This is C squared. So what that means is whatever value I have for C, it is being multiplied by itself, or it is being squared. And I want to know the value for C. So this means I have to do the opposite of squaring something. So I'm going to take the square root on both sides. When I take the square root of 25, it equals 5. So C equals 5. And that is number 1. Let's go ahead and look at number 2. Again, we want to start off by identifying our 90-degree angle and draw an arrow that points to C. Now we have to identify the other two sides of our triangle. So here, this is the height of my triangle, so I like to label this as A. And this is the base of my triangle, so I like to label it as B. So then let's copy down that formula again, which is A squared plus B squared equals C squared. So now, again, I'm going to go ahead and take these values and substitute them into my formula. So for A, I have 9 squared, plus B, I have 12 squared, and this equals C squared. So 9 squared equals 81, plus 12 squared, which is 144, equals c squared. Now I'm going to add those two together. So 81 plus 144 equals 225, and this equals c squared. Now, again, we're finding the value for c. I have c squared equals 225. So again, this means the value I have for c is being squared. Now, that means I want to do the opposite of that, and I'm going to take the square root on both sides. So taking the square root of 225, this equals 15. Here, c equals 15. Okay, then let's go ahead and look at number 3. So number 3, I have 2 points on a coordinate grid. So using the Pythagorean Theorem, they want us to find the distance between S and R. Now, what I can do, I can make a 90-degree angle. So from S, I'm going to draw a line going down, and then to R. So after I have this established, now I can go ahead and count my side lengths. So for the height of my triangle, this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And for the base of my triangle, this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now I identify my 90-degree angle and I draw an arrow that points to C. So here again we see I'm finding the hypotenuse. Now I have to label A and B. So again, I like to label the heights of my triangles as A and the base of my triangle as B. So now I can go ahead and set up my formula, which is A squared plus B squared equals C squared. Now I'm going to take this information from this triangle and substitute it into my formula. So for A, I have 8 squared, plus B, I have 5 squared, equals C squared. So now we're going to go ahead and simplify our exponents. So 8 squared is 64, plus 5 squared is 25, and this equals C squared. 64 plus 25 equals 89. So here I have 89 equals C squared. But again, I want the value for C, and this is C squared. So I'm going to do the opposite and take the square root. So taking the square root of 89 equals 9.43. We want to go ahead and round this to the tenths place, so it's going to be 9.4 units. Okay, so that's if your missing side is the hypotenuse. Now we're also going to see or find if the missing side is a leg. So that's going to be for problems 4, 5, and 6. So let's go ahead and look at number 4. So first thing we want to go ahead and do is identify our 90-degree angle. And we're going to draw an arrow, and here we see that it points to C. They have given us B here, so we're going to go ahead and label the top of our triangle as A. So now let's go ahead and copy down our formula, which is A squared plus B squared equals C squared. So for A squared we have, or for A we have the number 6. So A is going to be 6 squared plus B squared equals the value I have for C, which is 10 squared. So now let's go ahead and let's go ahead and simplify our exponents. So 6 squared equals 36 plus B squared equals 10 squared, which is 100. Now again, I'm solving for the value of B. And since here we see that our numbers are on opposite sides of the equal sign, this tells you that you have to subtract 36. So here we have B squared equals 100 minus 36 on one side, which is 64. Now again, I want to find the value of B. This is B squared. So this means that you have to take the square root on both sides. So the square root of 64 is going to equal 8. B equals 8. Okay. Then we have number 5. So again, start off by identifying your 90-degree angle and draw an arrow that points to C. Here I have the base of my triangle as A, so I'm going to label the height of my triangle as B. So now let's go ahead and set up that formula, which is A squared plus B squared equals C squared. And we're going to go ahead and substitute our information into our formula. So they have not given me a value for A, so I'm going to leave this as A squared plus B squared, which is 7 squared, equals C squared, which is 25 squared. Now using this now we're going to go ahead and simplify this. So I have A squared plus 7 squared, which is going to equal 49. And this equals 25 squared. And 25 squared equals 625. Now here I see 49 being added to A squared, so that means I'm going to want to do the opposite. I'm going to want to subtract 49. And again, we know we want to subtract it because we have our numbers on opposite sides of the equal sign. So here we're going to subtract by 49 on both sides. This is A squared equals 625 minus 49, which equals 576. So now, last step is going to be to take the square root on both sides. So taking the square root on both sides, we get 24. A equals 24. Okay, that's number 5. We're going to go ahead and now look at number 6. So number 6 wants to know how high will the ladder reach? So again, start off by identifying your 90-degree angle and draw an arrow that points to C. So here, this is the base of my triangle, so I like to label this as B. And since this is the height of my triangle, I like to label this as A. With that being said, we can go ahead and now write our formula down, which is A squared plus B squared equals C squared. So for A squared, the value I have for A is H. So I'm going to go ahead and leave A as A squared plus B, the value I have for B is 4. So this is going to be 4 squared. And this equals, the value I have for C is 16. So I'm going to substitute C with 16 squared. Now I'm going to go ahead and simplify my exponents. I'm going to drop down the A squared plus 4 squared equals 16, which equals 16 squared, which is 256. Now, again, I see that I have my numbers on opposite sides of the equal sign, so I'm going to go ahead and subtract 16 from both sides. That cancels. I'm left with A squared equals 256 minus 16 equals 240. Now, my last step again is to take the square root on both sides. Taking the square root of 240, we get 15.49. But we're going to go ahead and round this to the tenths place, so that 9 is actually going to go ahead and round the 4 up. So here, A equals 15.5 feet. And that is your notes going over the Pythagorean theorem.